where there was about 60 people. One of them was my daughter Isla, who I'd been really, that was with the whole experience of being on that flotilla, was just really just wanting her to be okay. I was taken to a kind of, in the opening of a very dark container, and I could see the silhouette of about 5 soldiers. I was dragged in, I was jostled, I was punched, they pulled down my trousers, I was raped from behind, was dragged through a kind of corridor. We had our passports on us. They told me, yet again, this is your second time. Why do you want to come to Israel? I said, I didn't want to come to Israel. I've come to occupied Palestine to deliver aid. What is so profoundly sad and basically racist is that, white bodies on the front line and white bodies in jeopardy obviously have more traction than, Palestinian bodies. But the reality is that almost 10,000 Palestinians without trial and without charge are in prison in occupied Palestine, and 350 of them are children. It's a very long story, and there are so many moments of horror and oppression and violence and brutality. But it started when we were intercepted on the 18th of May. In the 20 years of the history of the flotillas, it's never happened in the daytime. So that was something that we hadn't anticipated. We'd heard that a couple of, when you've got a flotilla of 42 boats, you start to hear through your channels if people are in danger. And we'd heard that people at the back, I was one of the front boats, that a few of the boats at the back were starting to be intercepted, and they were seeing high-powered Zodiacs with Israeli occupation forces soldiers on them, and the interception was happening. So we all had to be prepared. We're all really prepared in non-violent training. So that was when we had to get on deck, wear our life jackets, and basically prepared to put our hands up and submit, because we don't carry weapons, we carry baby food and critical aid and medicine, and we're not there to fight. So when it gets to the point of imminent danger and threat of life, that's when we have to basically surrender. So we were prepared for that. Okay, so we had a red line. There was 7 of us on our boat from different countries, from Bolivia, Chile, Germany, and we'd all decided that we would completely acquiesce when the violence was at a certain level. And that happened from the very, very beginning. They started to shoot about a foot over our heads when they asked us to stop the boat. And we decided that we would look at each other, and that would mean we're not going to continue the mission. So once they opened fire, we decided that we would do exactly what they said. They got on the boat. We were forced to the bow of the vessel. They floored the boat to the point that we thought that the engine was going to burn, and then and our Malaysian medic, almost there was a man overboard situation, because it's really dangerous to be at the front of a vessel without being having any safety gear. So that was the first indication that they meant business. Then we were transferred to the largest and most threatening prison boat that I've ever seen. I was on the flotilla last year, and I've never seen something, the kind of the edifice. It was almost like a skyscraper horizontally, with, a lot of artillery and a lot of balaclavaed, very, very, very muscular men with a lot of weapons. We were dragged onto that boat. They knew me by my first name, which, like, immediately I thought, I'm really in trouble now, because they didn't know anyone else's name on my boat. So I was kept away from my comrades for an hour, cable tied, my feet were shackled. I was thrown on the deck. the first thing that anyone said in a very American accent was, "Welcome to Israel. You're going to really enjoy this," which, you know, is not really it's not a welcome. It's
Yeah,
the
it's a threat.
subject
Yeah.
is that yeah, it's a threat. So I was there for an hour, and I was stomped upon every time that I'd move my head to see, which comrades were arriving on the boat and to see, what sort of condition they were in. Yeah, I was hit with a gun or slapped and told that I was going to be shot. And then they started to do this weird kind of water torture thing where they put so much water underneath my face that yeah, I thought I was going to drown because I was ingesting so much water in that position with no ability, yeah, to get out of that situation. Yeah, so within 20 minutes of boarding that ship, I thought that I was going to die. Later on, I was dragged through a kind of corridor. We had our passports on us. They told me yet again, this is your second time. Why do you want to come to Israel? I said I didn't want to come to Israel. I've come to occupied Palestine to deliver aid. They told me that yet again I would probably be killed. And then I could hear the howls of pain of people that were getting taken into a kind of shipping container very close to where I was. And then when it was my turn, I was taken to a kind of, in the opening of a very dark container, and I could see the silhouette of about five soldiers. I was dragged in. I was jostled. I was punched. They pulled down my trousers. I was raped from behind. Again, they said, "Welcome to Israel." I was punched in the face. I don't know how long that. It felt like that was a lifetime. I
Mhm.
think, yeah, who knows when you're that traumatized? It could have been 3 minutes. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been 10. I was then thrown out into an open air kind of deck where there was about 60 people. One of them was my daughter Isla, um, who I'd been really, that was my main thing with the whole experience of being on that flotilla was just really just wanting her to be okay. So she ran up to me and hugged me, and I just said, like, "Are you okay? What's happened to you?" And she said, "Mum, I'm all right. I'm okay." So that was a relief. I mean, she's not, because she was syringed with some unknown substance. I think three other people also have given testimony to that. And then that was, I think that was probably about midday from, how hot it was and from the shadows of the sun. But then it was a kind of litany of hearing people being dragged into the same shipping container, that howls of pain, screams of torture, and after, different amounts of period, people would be sort of pushed out. Most of the men would have their trousers down. They had bare bottoms. Some people had been tasered on their face, um, broken bones. It was just, I think that I don't know, I think I probably saw 100 people go, yeah, just being spat out into where we were. We started to, um, there was three shipping containers that we were allowed to sleep in, and we made a makeshift hospital for the most injured, which was basically plastic bags that, will wear and turn them into slings. Put the most needy into one of the shipping containers. And nobody really spoke about the sexual violence immediately, because I think that there's a lot of shame, and particularly, I think it's a gendered thing. I think a lot of men don't want to admit that they've been raped because there's just so much shame around that. But the immediate reaction was, let's just make sure that people don't die, that their fractures are kind of, we turned our t-shirts, kind of into slings. And we were on that boat for, I think, 2.5 days. We were shot at with rubber bullets. We weren't allowed to sleep. There wasn't even enough room for us to sleep in the shipping containers, so we went in turns of people standing, um, because they waterboarded us and everybody was, like completely soaking wet. We were just freezing cold at night, and they took our shoes away and they took our, warm sailing clothes away. So we basically were in t-shirts and jeans or shorts. So a lot of people were, yeah, yeah, potentially had hypothermia. Thankfully, we had four doctors on our
Uh,
prison boat.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, yeah, like how do we make sure that people don't die because we weren't allowed medication, water was really scant, food was scant, and we were continually threatened with gunfire, with execution. No, I think that that's something that we imagine happens on a television crime show. There was absolutely nothing like that. There was no call. There was no, yeah, yeah, we were adrift, and our only support was each other. There was absolutely no ability to get medication, to get more water, um, yeah, to get any help or any word out to the world. I mean, well, the problem with the Israeli government is that they even deny that there's a genocide going on, and they deny that and then that they say that there's a ceasefire. But we know that they spend millions of dollars on their propaganda machine, and they violate international law. We were kidnapped in international waters. They had absolutely no legal right to stop our boats. As a humanitarian mission with no guns, and all we had was humanitarian aid. It's completely illegal to intercept our boats and kidnap us and put us in prison. So I find it very hard from a legal standpoint or even from public opinion to believe anything that the Israelis say. I mean, how can we? Like, as a mother of two daughters, the reality that children are being starved, that they're being sniped, that they're using drone bombs and really technically and like high-powered weaponry systems that most of the West are making a lot of money out of. Just as a mother, I feel like my moral responsibility when my government are not representing me and not representing the majority of Australians, that, I had no choice. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be raped. I didn't want to be tortured. I didn't want my daughter to go, but she's 25 and she, as a family, we share the same ethics and values that we try and help people. It's very simple. I don't think that's a complicated concept. So we were there because our governments weren't. And yeah, when you look at social change and you look at history, it has been ordinary people that have had to step up to make the world a better place. So I just felt as terrified as I was the entire time. I don't think that I could look at myself in the eye. I don't think I could have slept at night. I just had to go. Yeah, no, we have, and they haven't made a statement yet. We have taken our testimonies to The Hague, and we will be, as the Australian delegation, taking the Israeli government to court. So we're doing that now. It's been really difficult to get our medical evidence. We went straight to the hospital in Turkey. I do have a broken coccyx from getting kicked in the back. My daughter does have broken ribs, but it's just a really long process to get the evidence. But our lawyers are doing all of that, and I do feel like, the horror of going through the violence and the brutality at the hands of the Israelis has then been confounded by the fact that a lot of people are not believing us and are expecting us to bat. They're saying, why doesn't she have blood on her face? Why isn't she bruised? Why is she so calm? But, whenever has somebody who's been through something so traumatic been immediately asked to prove, to show x-rays when there's obvious, there's a process. It's going to take me 30 days to get this stuff. So I just feel like it's just It's just another level of punishment to not be believed. But the truth will come out, and we will see the evil that is the Israeli regime. And I do think that there will be a shift in foreign policy because they cannot support this cruel, genocidal regime anymore because humanity will not allow. Well, I mean, the conflation between being anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic doesn't make any sense whatsoever because I have lots of Jewish friends. We had lots of Jewish people on the flotilla. This is not about religion. This is about an ethno-state that was, Israel was created in 1947. Before that, there was no Israel. So, the kind of chosen people that want their right to return and their right to kind of land grab and ethnically cleanse and erase Palestinian people is not about religion and it's not about love. And all the Jewish people that I know do not agree with Zionism. So, anti-Semitism is not anti-Semitism is hate. I mean, no, no, anti-Semitism is nothing to do with being anti-Zionist. Yeah, the two things don't go together, and it's a really good ploy. In Australia now we have anti-Semitic laws where you can't say from the river to the sea. We're not allowed to do Palestinian rallies. After the Bondi shootings, when 15 Jewish people died really tragically, the Zionist lobby in Australia, which does control a lot of the media and which does give a lot of money to our government, and we do supply a lot of integral parts to the F-35 fighter jet planes, which do actually kill innocent Palestinians. We are really in bed with the Zionist regime, so it's a business operation. But yeah, I'm not anti-Jewish. A lot of my friends are Jewish. I mean, that's what's so heartbreaking, is it? That what is so profoundly sad and basically racist is that white bodies on the front line and white bodies in jeopardy obviously have more traction than Palestinian bodies, but the reality is that almost 10,000 Palestinians without trial and without charge are in prison in occupied Palestine, and 350 of them are children, and there is a real reality that they will die in there. So we were raped and tortured, but not to death. But these, really, 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 it's just profoundly heartbreaking to know that they will probably perish and die in those prisons. And if shining a light on it, with us going on flotillas, helps make people be more moral and be kinder and be more caring, then so be it.